All right, let's talk about a number that makes spines tingle and sends shivers down the backs of horror fans. 666. Flash those three digits on screen, and instantly everyone thinks demon, right? Horns, hellfire, pure, unadulterated evil. But here's a twist for you. The very first Christians who encountered that number, the folks who actually read the book of Revelation when it was fresh off the scroll, they weren't picturing some mythical devil. Not at all. Instead, their minds immediately conjured the image of a short, rather portly, neck-bearded emperor. A guy who, by the way, absolutely despised them, burned their churches, and then had the audacity to blame them for setting Rome on fire. Pretty messed up, huh? So how did a political graffiti tag, a coded insult against a very real, very human tyrant, morph into pop culture's go-to symbol for pure cosmic evil? It's a wild ride, and the truth is way more fascinating than fiction. Section 1. Why we're scared of three digits. Seriously, walk into almost any elevator today, and you'll likely find it skips from floor 12 straight to 14. Try to find a metal playlist that doesn't cram 666 into at least one chorus. I dare you. Horror films love splashing it across walls, receipts, even phone numbers, making it feel anciently cursed. But here's the kicker. That intense modern dread we associate with 666, it's actually younger than the first iPhone. Our current understanding is like a game of telephone, a copy of a copy of a copy, and somewhere along the line, in all that Xeroxing, we totally lost the original caption that explained the whole inside joke. We've inherited the fear without the context, and that's a powerful thing, isn't it? We're scared of something we don't fully grasp, something that has been culturally amplified and distorted over centuries. Section 2. The crime scene in Revelation. To really get to the bottom of this, we've got to go straight to the source. Flip open your Bible to Revelation 13:18. It reads, "Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now pay close attention to two crucial details in that verse. First off, the writer explicitly expects the reader to do math, not to just cower in fear of math. This wasn't meant to be a terrifying, unknowable mystery, but a puzzle meant to be solved by those in the know. Second, and this is huge, it clearly states it's the number of a man, not the devil or some abstract evil entity. Whatever 666 is pointing to, it's a flesh and blood human being, someone you could literally bump into at the market. And more specifically, someone those first century shoppers already had very good reason to despise. This isn't about some distant supernatural force. It's about a concrete historical figure. Section 3, the clue inside the alphabet. So, how do you get a number from a name? Well, first century Jews and Greeks were masters of this game. They had a fascinating practice called gematria. Think of it as ancient numerology, where every letter in their alphabets also doubled as a numeral. It wasn't some obscure secret practice. It was a common and well-understood system. This meant that every single name, every word, was also inherently a math problem. Imagine if our alphabet worked like that. It's kind of like a Caesar cipher, but instead of shifting letters, you're translating them into numbers and then adding them up. If you wanted to subtly attack a politician, or perhaps a tyrannical emperor, without risking your neck by openly criticizing them, you could simply code their name into a number. Then you'd let the rumor mill, the ancient equivalent of social media, do the rest. It was a clever, subversive way to disseminate dissent right under the noses of the authorities. Section 4. Meet the suspect. Nero. And who was this prime suspect? This man, whom early Christians would have universally recognized and reviled. Enter Nero Claudius Caesar. This guy was no saint, to put it mildly. His reign was marked by extreme cruelty and paranoia. Historians tell us he kicked his pregnant wife to death and murdered his own mother. But for Christians, his atrocities were particularly horrific. He subjected them to some truly gruesome deaths, dipping them in tar and setting them alight to illuminate his garden parties, crucifying them, or throwing them to wild beasts in public spectacles. When the Great Fire of Rome erupted in 64 AD, devastating much of the city, rumors quickly spread that Nero himself was responsible, perhaps even fiddling while Rome burned. To deflect this blame and appease a furious populace, he pointed the finger squarely at the new, often misunderstood, religious sect, the Christians. So if you were an oppressed believer living under his thumb, trying to write an anti-imperial rant, Nero was the absolute, undeniable villain. He was the embodiment of everything they feared and suffered. Section 5, the smoking gun sum. Now for the math. Take the Hebrew spelling of Neron Caesar, that's Nero Caesar, with the Latin in and added to fit Hebrew grammar. In Hebrew, letters have numerical values. Nun, N, equals 50 resh, R equals 200 vav, O equals 6 nun, N equals 50, kuf, Q equals 100 samek, S equals 160 resh, R equals 200 plug, those numbers in, 50 plus 200 plus 6 plus 50 for Neron, and 100 plus 60 plus 200 for Caesar. Add them all up, and what do you get? A perfect 666. It's almost too neat, isn't it? Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Some early copyists of Revelation, particularly those translating into Latin or using a slightly different Hebrew spelling, would drop that final nun from Neron. This shorter spelling, Nero Caesar, would then total 616, and guess what? That variant, 616, shows up in some of the oldest manuscripts we have of Revelation. This isn't a sign of sloppy coding, it's actually a testament to its flexibility and widespread recognition. Like a meme that works in two different fonts, both numbers still clearly point to the same notorious individual. Section 6. Why code it at all? You might be wondering, why go through all this trouble? Why not just say Nero is the beast? Well, openly calling the emperor a beast was a one-way ticket to a cross, or a Roman arena lion. Roman authorities were not known for their sense of humor when it came to imperial critiques. By hiding the name in arithmetic, the writer of Revelation created a brilliant piece of protest literature. It allowed insiders, those who understood gematria and the context of Nero's persecution, to nod knowingly, to recognize the coded message and find solidarity in their shared understanding. Outsiders, however, would just shrug, none the wiser. It was first-century whistleblowing, a powerful act of defiance without actually blowing the whistle and getting yourself executed. It was a message of hope and resistance delivered in a clandestine, yet widely understood, language. Section 7. The wounded head that healed. Revelation doesn't stop there with its subtle jabs at Nero. It also describes one of the beast's heads as looking mortally wounded, yet the wound miraculously healed. This wasn't some random piece of sci-fi for its original readers. After Nero's forced suicide in 68 AD, a persistent and widespread rumor took hold that he wasn't really dead. Instead, people believed he had fled east, perhaps to Parthia, and would soon return with an army to reclaim his throne and wreak havoc once more. This legend, known as Nero Redivivus, or Nero Reborn, remained popular for decades, even centuries. To the early Christians, the healed head wasn't a metaphor. It was the very real, terrifying fear that yesterday's nightmare, their persecutor, might literally stroll back through the gates of Rome, ready to resume his terror. The prospect of his return was associated with calamity and evil ruling the world. Section 8. 6 as symbol, not score. Beyond the direct name-to-number connection, there's another layer of biblical numerology at play here. In ancient Jewish and Christian thought, numbers carried deep symbolic weight. 7, for instance, universally represented completion, perfection, and divine wholeness. God rests on the seventh day after all. 6, on the other hand, constantly falls short. It's the number of human effort, of unfinished business, of imperfection. Man was created on the sixth day, and 6 days were given for labor before the rest of the seventh. So when you triple it, 666, you get a powerful symbol of ultimate human imperfection. It's an unholy trinity of incompleteness, a stark parody of the divine 777, which would symbolize ultimate perfection. Thus, 666 carried a dual message: Nero is the problem, yes, but also a profound theological statement that human power without God is always one, chords short of harmony, always incomplete, always flawed, and ultimately always destined to fail. Section 9. How the code turned into a curse. The genius of the Revelation writer's coded message is that it was so adaptable. Once Nero was gone, the number didn't lose its potency. Instead, it became a blank canvas for future anxieties. During the medieval period, preachers started lumping 666 with any perceived threat on the horizon. Muslims, Jews, rival popes, even specific kings or political figures. It became a convenient shorthand for any adversary. Then by the 20th century, with the rise of technology and mass media, end times novels and sensationalist evangelists stapled the digits to microchips, barcodes, and credit cards, predicting a literal mark of the beast that would control all commerce. Each generation, it seems, reboots the number for its fresh set of anxieties, for whatever new threat feels most overwhelming. But in all these reboots, in all the panic, they rarely, if ever, mention the short, neck-bearded Roman emperor who started it all. The original context, the historical joke, gets completely lost in translation. Section 10. Quick reality check. Let's just be super clear about something. Scholars across a wide spectrum, Catholic, Protestant, and secular universities alike, largely agree on this historical interpretation. The primary historical referent for 666 is indeed Emperor Nero. It's not a matter of obscure theological debate anymore. It's a widely accepted academic conclusion. So, all that speculative math that twists letters until Ronald Wilson Reagan or Henry Kissinger or some other modern figure pops out, while it might be fun at sleepovers or make for a compelling conspiracy theory, it completely ignores the plain, undeniable first-century context and the very real historical circumstances that gave birth to this powerful symbol. It's like trying to find hidden messages in a Shakespeare play by counting letters in a modern English translation. You're missing the original language and intent. Mid-roll CTA. If all this is completely reshuffling what you thought you knew about 666, if it's blowing your mind a little, then do yourself a favor. Hit that subscribe button. We're solving more ancient riddles and uncovering surprising truths every single week. Who knows? The next one might just save you from buying another doomsday book you really, truly don't need. Section 11. Other religions shrug. Here's another fascinating point. That intense dread surrounding 666, it's largely a Western export, deeply rooted in a specific branch of Christian apocalyptic literature. Judaism, for instance, often treats 666 as just a number, without the sinister overtones. In some Kabbalistic traditions, it can even symbolize balance, harmony, in the sun's radiant energy, representing the physical world in its completeness. It's seen as having exalted and lofty messianic potential. Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, they don't assign it any special dread whatsoever. Most of the planet's 7 billion people could probably care less if room 666 shows up on their hotel keycard. They'll sleep just fine. The panic, the fear, the superstition, it's a cultural phenomenon, not a universal one. Section 12, the real lesson. So what's the real takeaway here? The scariest thing about 666 was never the digits themselves. It was never about some magical, evil number. No, the truly terrifying aspect was, and still is, the human capacity for cruelty. It's our ability to torture our neighbors, to persecute those who are different, all while somehow convincing ourselves that we're righteous, that we're on the right side. Nero embodied that horrific capacity perfectly, and the writer of Revelation, by coding his name into that number, wasn't just pointing a finger. They wanted oppressed believers to see tyranny for what it truly was. Temporary, already mathematically labeled, and therefore ultimately doomed. It was a message of hope, a prophecy of the inevitable downfall of oppressive power, even when that power seemed invincible. So there you have it. 666 began its life not as a cosmic evil, but as an ancient diss track, a coded protest aimed squarely at a tyrant who murdered Christians. Copyists, perhaps recognizing its powerful symbolism, kept the number alive through the centuries. Pop culture, with its insatiable appetite for dramatic symbols, kept remixing it, transforming it into something far removed from its origins. And here we are today, tattooing it on vampires, splashing it across album covers, and using it as a shorthand for all things spooky. The mystery behind 666 isn't some deep cosmic enigma. It's a fascinating historical journey. The next time you spot those three sixes, instead of picturing a horned demon or a shadowy antichrist, try to visualize a short, rather portly emperor with a bad haircut. You'll be much, much closer to the code that the first readers cracked in secret. And if anyone tries to tell you they've finally found the real beast by adding up a modern name, just smile and remember, the math already worked 2,000 years ago on a man whose own mighty empire couldn't save him from a forced suicide in a muddy ditch outside Rome. The truth, as always, is far more compelling.